The Winnipeg Jets, the President's Trophy winner from a season ago, first time that's ever happened for that franchise, 56-22-4. They got off to that amazing 15-1 start and had probably the most dramatic first-round victory. Coming back in Game 7 against the St. Louis Blues, they were down 2 goals with 1 minute and 56 seconds left in the final game. Got the 2 goals. Cole Perfetti scoring with 3 seconds left to tie the game before Adam Lowry won it just over 16 minutes into the second overtime. But they wound up falling to Dallas in the second round. And the biggest single problem for the Jets in the playoffs, Neil, 6-1 at home, 0-6 on the road. And that's the single biggest reason that this club wasn't able to advance to the conference final and perhaps beyond.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing that people looked at in the playoffs and maybe gave him too much scrutiny was Connor Hellebuyck, their goaltender, who won the MVP trophy and the Vezina trophy for 24-25. I thought he played okay in the playoffs, but he certainly wasn't like he was during the regular season, for whatever reason that is, whether it's the defense wasn't as good in front of him, whether their structure fell apart. Connor Hellebuyck didn't look like MVP of the league in the playoffs.
We're going to get to him a bit more later in the Jets segment, but let's first talk about the player movement during the course of the summer. The biggest note, besides losing left wing Nikolaj Ehlers to the Carolina Hurricanes, was Jonathan Toews coming back into the NHL. This was announced on June 20th. Comes in as a UFA, $2 million with up to $5 million in performance bonuses. He's a Winnipeg native, and his last game in the NHL was April 13th, 2023, as the captain of the Chicago Blackhawks. But since then, he has missed 3 of the last 5 seasons. And a year ago at this time, he was off to India for a panchakarma treatment for detoxification, a program to help his mind, his body, his consciousness. And he had been dealing with chronic immune response syndrome along with long COVID. So this has been a long way back for him. And even though he's 37 now, you have to wonder that, does he feel 2 or 3 or maybe more years younger after having undergone this treatment in India?
Yeah, he must be feeling good, obviously, to try to rectify or restart his NHL career. Much the same as the guy we're going to talk about, another captain of a Colorado Avalanche, and Gabriel Landeskog coming back last year was remarkable. But this one is even more remarkable. Nobody knows what to expect out of Jonathan Toews. They do know he's a tremendous leader. He got the Stanley Cup handed to him by the commissioner 3 times. He's a 3-time Stanley Cup winning captain. And it's hard to go and find guys that have won more Stanley Cups as a captain than Jonathan Toews. It's going to be interesting to see what he can add and to see what Ehlers leaves them without, having left the team.
They also lost Mason Appleton, who's a very serviceable center for them in their bottom 6. Brandon Tanev, it's a UFA, goes to Utah, and Dominic Toninato signed as a UFA by Chicago. So those are their losses. And the reason I wanted to go in that direction is because when you lose Ehlers, you lose Appleton, Tanev was acquired by trade, so he really wasn't part of that infrastructure of the Jets. But now when you look at who the Jets have tried to fill in with, in addition to Toews, the biggest name is Gustav Nyquist, who signed as a UFA from Minnesota, 1 year, $3.25 million, and he slotted in to the second line along with Toews and Cole Perfetti. They also signed Cole Peeke, it's a 4th-line player, UFA from Boston. Tanner Pearson comes in from the Vegas Golden Knights. Phil Giuseppe, UFA, signed from Vancouver. And Walker Duehr, Once again, no Gene joke required here. He signed as a UFA from the San Jose Sharks. And among the players that they were able to keep, either by UFA or RFA, Hayden Fleury, pending free agent, re-signed with the Jets, and 3 players that they were able to avoid arbitration with, Morgan Barron, Gabe Vilardi, and defenseman Dylan Sandberg. But when you look at this in the collective, Neil, and the players that they've lost and the players that they're able to sign, is this a true indication of the Winnipeg market simply not being that desirable? It's a great city, but it's also 40 below there during the winter.
Yeah, and it's Canada too. So the Canadian, you've got all the Canadian tax issues and all that kind of stuff. I can say, Vic, that the Winnipeg Jets, when you play for Winnipeg, everybody that's played there has loved it there. They love playing there. Do they want to go there? No. Do they want to get traded there? No. Do they want to sign as a free agent there? It's not a very desirable spot to go, but you got to give Kevin Cheveldayoff and his staff a lot of credit that they could win the President's Trophy. Remember, a year ago, we had him on the show and we were talking about how he got Mark Scheifele and Connor Hellebuyck to sign long-term deals to stay there. And they really want to see that team win in Winnipeg. They want to win in Winnipeg. They don't want to win somewhere else. So let's go through the team and the way we always do. I don't see that big of a change, but let's take a look.
In doing so, their top line is going to be just fine. It's Kyle Connor, it's Mark Scheifele, it's Gabe Vilardi. And those are 3 high-end players, probably going to be one of the best lines in the NHL. I would certainly put them in the top 5. But on that second line, it starts to thin out a little bit because you've got Toews, who's an unknown. Cole Perfetti, I think, has to pick up a little bit of the slack of Ehlers being lost to the Carolina Hurricanes. And Gustav Nyquist is in his 30s. And then your third and fourth lines, I think it's a crapshoot in terms of how much offense you're going to be able to get from them. I think Vlad Nemestikov, again, had a really good year last year. And it's going to be imperative that they get some contributions from those third and fourth lines if they're going to be able to, I'm not going to say repeat. I don't think this is a back-to-back President's Trophy winning team, no matter how you slice it, no matter how much things go right for them this year. But in order to be a strong and maybe a team that gets home ice advantage in the first round.
Absolutely. But you've picked up their biggest weakness now. Without Nikolaj Ehlers as a sniper there, they don't have the strength. And Appleton is gone too. And Appleton was a very serviceable player for them. They've got all their eggs in one basket, which is, as you said, Kyle Connor, Scheifele, and Vilardi is a very good line in the NHL. We're going to have to see what Jonathan Toews can bring. Gustav Nyquist has never been a big scorer, ever. Yep. And Cole Perfetti he's an improving player. But after that, their bottom 6, they're going to have to get some offense from them for sure to make up for what they're missing in the second line.
What do you make of their defense? Because the first pairing, Josh Morrissey, probably under the radar, one of the best defensemen in the NHL. He's paired up with Dylan DeMelo on the first pair. Dylan Sandberg, who we just mentioned before, being retained as an RFA. He's with Neil Pionk on the second pair, and then Hayden Fleury and Luke Shen on the third pairing. So I like this group as a collective defensive group. And then, of course, you've got Connor Hellebuyck in goal. And you mentioned him at the head, Neil, that playoffs were a struggle for him. And in his last 3 postseasons, starting in 2023, 3.44 goals against, 886 save percentage. 24, 5.23, and 870 in that disastrous series against Colorado. And then last year, a little bit better, 3.08 and an 866 save percentage. And So, for all the accolades that we have seen, three-time Vezina Trophy winner, won the Hart as MVP last year. When you start to put a resume of playoff performances like that, how much does the regular season even matter anymore, no matter how well he does in 25-26?
No, he's got to, obviously, he's going to try to go out and do what he did last year in the regular season. But then when the playoffs come, all eyes will be on Connor Hellebuyck again to see, can he perform at the level that he does during the regular season? And we haven't seen that from him. There's just no other way to slice it. We just don't get the stellar goaltending out of Connor Hellebuyck in the playoffs that the Winnipeg Jets see during the regular season.
What's your expectation here? Because I think we can make too much of losing Ehlers. And in the bigger picture of things, this team is fairly comparable personnel-wise to where they were a year ago. And Scott Arniel, now in his second season, running the team. I don't think there'll be any secrets there. But what is their aspiration in terms of where they expect to finish during the course of the regular season? We know what they want to do in the playoffs, but what's realistic?
I think it's realistic for them to be in the top three, obviously in the Central Division, and they'll be trying to win that Central Division, I'm sure, to get home ice in that. I don't think at the beginning of the season they'll be talking about the President's Trophy. Nobody ever does. They'll be talking about let's get into first and stay in first, and they have a legitimate chance to do that. There hasn't been many back-to-back President's Trophy winning clubs in the history of the President's Trophy, and I don't think Winnipeg's going to do it either, just because they've done it and they know that the important stuff starts in April. I think their aim is going to be first place and stay healthy and keep the dominance going at home ice.
To finish first again, even in the division, is going to be a daunting task because there are some real heavyweights that came in right behind them last year.